a nun vanished from a convent in 1983. 28 years later, her rosary was found sewn into another sister's robe. Rebecca Walsh stood in the sterile, fluorescent lighting of St. Mary's Convent laundry room, holding her breath as Sister Dorothy Mills pulled apart the seams of a damaged habit. The elderly nun had requested help with repairs, but neither woman expected what tumbled onto the folding table: a rosary. Not just any rosary, one with distinctive carved wooden beads and a silver crucifix bearing the initials C.W. "That belongs to Sister Catherine," Rebecca whispered, her voice barely audible over the humming washing machines. Sister Dorothy's weathered hands trembled as she examined the beads. "Catherine Walsh. But she's been missing for 28 years. Rebecca nodded, her throat constricting. Catherine Walsh was her aunt, her father's younger sister, who had taken vows in 1981. In March 1983, Sister Catherine had simply vanished from the convent grounds. The official report stated she had abandoned her vows and left during the night, taking nothing but the clothes on her back. "Why would a rosary be sewn into your habit?" Rebecca asked, studying the careful stitching that concealed the beads in the lining. "I don't know," Sister Dorothy replied, her eyes darting toward the door. "I've worn this habit for 15 years. It was given to me by Mother Superior Brennan when I transferred here from the Philadelphia convent." Rebecca lifted the habit, examining the expert needlework. The rosary had been deliberately hidden, each bead secured with small, precise stitches. "Someone went to great lengths to hide this. We should report this to Mother Superior," Sister Dorothy said, reaching for the habit. "No," Rebecca responded, her voice immediate and sharp. "Not yet. Let me think about this." Sister Dorothy pulled her hands back, studying Rebecca's face. "You never believed she left voluntarily, did you? Catherine would never abandon her vows. She'd been planning to take them since she was 12 years old." Rebecca carefully lifted the rosary, feeling the familiar weight of the beads. She used to say this rosary was blessed by Pope John Paul II himself when he visited Philadelphia. In 1979, the laundry room door creaked open, and both women froze. Mother Superior Brennan entered, her severe expression scanning the room before settling on the rosary in Rebecca's hands. "What is that?" Her voice carried the same authority that had commanded the convent for 30 years. "We found it in Sister Dorothy's habit," Rebecca replied, watching Mother Superior's face carefully. "It belonged to my aunt, Sister Catherine." Mother Superior's expression remained unchanged, but Rebecca noticed her hands clench briefly at her sides. "Sister Catherine left this convent in 1983. She abandoned her vows and returned to the secular world. Then why is her rosary sewn in two?" "Another sister's habit?" Rebecca challenged. "I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." Mother Superior stepped forward, extending her hand. "I'll take charge of this and conduct a proper investigation." Rebecca stepped back, clutching the rosary. "I think the police should handle this." "The police?" Mother Superior's voice rose slightly. "There's no need to involve secular authorities in convent matters. Sister Catherine's departure was thoroughly documented." "By whom?" Rebecca asked. "I've requested copies of those documents for years, and they've never been provided." Mother Superior's jaw tightened. "Some matters are confidential, Miss Walsh. The Church has its own protocols for handling such situations." Sister Dorothy cleared her throat nervously. "Perhaps we should all pray for guidance before making any hasty decisions." "There's hasty about wanting answers to a 28-year-old question," Rebecca replied, her voice growing stronger. "My family deserves to know what happened to Catherine." Mother Superior moved closer, her presence imposing despite her small stature. "Your aunt made her choice, Miss Walsh. She left in the middle of the night, taking nothing. We found her room empty, her vows of poverty fulfilled to the letter. Except for her rosary," Rebecca countered, "which somehow ended up hidden in another." "Sister's clothing. Rosaries can be replaced," Mother Superior said dismissively. "Perhaps she left it behind intentionally." Rebecca studied the older woman's face, noting the slight tick in her left eye. Catherine would never leave without this rosary. It was her most treasured possession. Material possessions should not be treasured by those who have taken vows of poverty, Mother Superior replied coldly. "Spiritual possessions are different. Rebecca shot back. This rosary was blessed by the Pope. Catherine would have considered it sacred. Sister Dorothy stepped between them, her voice shaking. Perhaps we should all take time to consider this situation prayerfully. Prayer is always appropriate, Mother Superior agreed, her tone softening slightly. But we must also be practical. Miss Walsh, I understand your concern for your aunt, but she made her choice long ago. This discovery, while unusual, doesn't change that fact. Rebecca looked down at the rosary in her hands, noting the wear on the beads from decades of use. If Catherine left voluntarily, why wasn't the police report filed until 3 days after she disappeared? Mother Superior's expression hardened. Who told you about police reports? I filed a Freedom of Information Act request last year, Rebecca replied. The initial missing person report was filed on March 15, 1983. But it states that Sister Catherine was last seen on March 12th. Administrative delays are common in such situations, Mother Superior said stiffly. 3 days is a long time not to notice someone missing from a small convent community, Rebecca pressed. Sister Dorothy nodded slowly. We have prayers together. 6 times daily. Everyone would be missed immediately. Mother Superior's eyes flashed with irritation. Sister Dorothy, you weren't here in 1983. You don't understand the circumstances. Then explain them to me, Rebecca demanded. Explain why my aunt's rosary was hidden in another sister's habit. Explain why the police weren't called for 3 days. Explain why my family was never allowed to see her room or speak to anyone who saw her last. Some explanations are not yours to demand, Mother Superior replied, her voice rising. This is a house of God, not a courthouse. Rebecca pocketed the rosary, her decision made. Then I'll get my explanations elsewhere, Miss Walsh, Mother. Superior's voice carried a warning tone. I strongly advise against involving secular authorities in church matters. The church has its own ways of handling such situations. The church had 28 years to provide answers, Rebecca replied, heading toward the door. It's time for a different approach. As Rebecca reached the doorway, she turned back to Sister Dorothy. Thank you for showing me this. I know it wasn't easy. Sister Dorothy nodded silently, her face pale. Mother Superior stepped forward. Miss Walsh, before you make any irreversible decisions, perhaps you should consider the potential consequences. Your aunt's reputation, the reputation of this convent, the scandal that could arise from unfounded accusations. The only thing I'm considering is finding out what happened to my aunt, Rebecca replied firmly. If that causes scandal, then perhaps there's something that should be scandalous. She left the laundry room, her mind racing with possibilities. The rosary felt heavy in her pocket, not from its physical weight, but from the weight of 28 years of unanswered questions. Rebecca walked quickly through the convent corridors, past the chapel where she had attended services as a child, past the common room where she had visited Catherine during her novitiate. The building felt different now, its peaceful atmosphere, replaced by something more sinister in the parking lot. She pulled out her cell phone and dialed a number she had memorized years ago. Detective Morrison, this is Rebecca Walsh. I need to report a possible crime. I believe my aunt's sister, Catherine Walsh, was murdered in 1983. Detective James Morrison spread the 1983 case file across his desk, the manila folder yellowed with age. Rebecca Walsh sat across from him, the rosary from the convent resting on the desk between them. The original investigation was minimal, Morrison admitted, flipping through the sparse documentation. Officer Bradley Campbell handled the initial report. He's retired now, but his notes are here. What do they say? Rebecca asked, leaning forward. Morrison read from the file. Missing person report filed March 15, 1983. Subject, Sister Catherine Walsh. Age 24, Caucasian female. Last seen March 12, 1983, at evening prayers. Mother Superior, Agatha Brennan. Reported subject left voluntarily, abandoning religious vows. No signs of foul play. Case closed April 2, 1983. That's it. Rebecca's voice rose in disbelief. 21 days of investigation for a missing person. The circumstances seemed clear-cut, Morrison replied, continuing to read. The subject's personal belongings were gone. Her room was empty, and there, were no signs of struggle or forced entry. But what about interviews, witnesses, any actual investigation? Morrison flipped to another page. Campbell interviewed Mother Superior Brennan, Sister Margaret Foster, and Sister Helen Murphy. Confirmed that Sister Catherine seemed distressed in the weeks prior to her disappearance. Distressed about what? The reports don't specify. Morrison looked up from the file. Miss Walsh, I understand your frustration, but you have to understand that in 1983, when a nun left her convent, it wasn't uncommon. The church was going through significant changes. Following Vatican II, Rebecca held up the rosary. But this changes everything. Why would Catherine leave her most precious possession behind? And why would it be hidden in another sister's habit? Morrison examined the rosary carefully. These are distinctive beads? Can you prove they belong to your aunt? My family has photographs of Catherine with this rosary. She received it as a gift when she took her first vows. Rebecca pulled out her phone, showing Morrison several photos. Look at the carved pattern on the beads, the distinctive crucifix. Morrison compared the photos to the physical rosary. It's a match. The question is how it ended up in Sister Dorothy's habit. According to Sister Dorothy, Mother Superior Brennan gave her that habit when she transferred to St. Mary's from Philadelphia. In 1996, 13 years after my aunt disappeared, Rebecca noted. That's quite a gap, Morrison said. Detective, I need to know what really happened to my aunt. This rosary proves she didn't just leave voluntarily. Morrison closed the file. I'll need to conduct new interviews. The convent might not be cooperative. Given the sensitive nature of the allegations, Mother Superior Brennan is still there. She was in charge in 1983. That's actually helpful. Institutional memory is important in cold cases. Morrison made notes on a legal pad. I'll also need to interview Sister Dorothy Mills and any other sisters who were present in 1983. Sister Margaret Foster and Sister Helen Murphy were mentioned. In the original report, I'll track them down. Religious communities maintain good records of their members' whereabouts. Morrison looked at Rebecca seriously. Miss Walsh, I want you to understand that reopening this case could uncover information that might be difficult to hear. I've been living with unanswered questions for 28 years. Whatever the truth is, it can't be worse than not knowing. What? Morrison nodded. I'll start with Mother Superior Brennan. Can you arrange a meeting? She won't want to cooperate. She made that clear yesterday. Sometimes reluctance to cooperate is itself revealing, Morrison replied. I'll contact the convent today. 2 hours later, Morrison stood in the austere office of Mother Superior Brennan. The room was sparsely furnished with a wooden desk, 2 chairs, and a large crucifix on the wall. Brennan sat behind her desk, her expression carefully neutral. Detective Morrison, I'm surprised by your visit. I thought the matter of Sister Catherine's departure was settled long ago. New evidence has come to light, Morrison replied, pulling out his notebook. Miss Walsh found Sister Catherine's rosary hidden in another sister's habit. That raises questions about the original investigation. Rosaries are common items in convents. Many look similar. This one has been positively identified as belonging to Sister Catherine Walsh. The question is how it ended up sewn into Sister Dorothy's habit. Mother Superior's fingers drummed silently on the desk. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. I'd like to hear it, Morrison said, pen poised. Sister Catherine was troubled in the weeks before her departure. She had been struggling with her vows, questioning her calling. Perhaps she gave the rosary to another sister before leaving. But it was hidden in the lining of the habit, not given openly. I wouldn't know the specifics of such a transaction. Yes. Morrison made notes. Tell me about Sister Catherine's state of mind. In March 1983, she was conflicted. The life of a religious isn't easy, especially for someone so young. She expressed doubts about her vocation. To whom did she express these doubts? To me, in spiritual direction? Such conversations are confidential, not when they might relate to a crime. Mother Superior stiffened. There was no crime, Detective. Sister Catherine left voluntarily. If that's true, why wasn't her departure reported to the police for 3 days? We hoped she would return. It's not uncommon for religious to have temporary crises of faith. Morrison looked around the office, noting the meticulous organization. Mother Superior, this is clearly a well-run institution. Are you telling me that someone could disappear for 3 days without being noticed? We noticed her absence immediately. We simply chose to handle it internally first. By doing what? Prayer, primarily? We also contacted other convents to see if she had sought refuge elsewhere. Did you search her room? Of course, her belongings were gone. What belongings specifically? Mother. Superior paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. Her personal items, clothing, prayer books, letters from her family, but not her rosary. Apparently not. Morrison flipped back through his notes. The original report states that Sister Catherine was last seen at evening prayers on March 12th. Who saw her there? I did. Sister Margaret Foster and Sister Helen Murphy were also present. I'll need to speak with them. Sister Margaret passed away in 1995. Sister Helen transferred to our convent in Arizona in 1987. Do you have contact information for Sister Helen? I can provide that. Morrison closed his notebook. Mother Superior, I want to be clear about something. If Sister Catherine Walsh was murdered, and if anyone in this convent was involved in covering it up, those people will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. That's quite an accusation, Detective. It's not an accusation. It's a warning. I've reopened this case, and I intend to find out what really happened to Catherine Walsh. Mother Superior stood, her expression cold. I trust you'll conduct your investigation with appropriate respect for this sacred institution. I'll conduct it with appropriate respect for the truth, Morrison replied, heading for the door. As he left the convent, Morrison felt the familiar tingle of a case that was more complex than it initially appeared. In his 22 years of police work, he had learned to recognize when people were hiding something. Mother Superior Brennan was definitely hiding something. He called Rebecca Walsh. From his car, I interviewed Mother Superior Brennan. She's sticking to the story that your aunt left voluntarily, but she seemed nervous. What's next? I'm going to contact Sister Helen Murphy in Arizona. She was one of the last people to see your aunt alive. Detective. Do you think my aunt is dead? Morrison considered his words carefully. Miss Walsh, I think someone has been lying about what happened to your aunt for 28 years. Finding out why is the key to finding out what really happened. Sister Helen Murphy's voice trembled over the phone connection from Arizona. Detective Morrison had reached her at the Desert Springs convent, where she had lived for nearly 3 decades. Sister Catherine was frightened, Helen said, her words careful and measured. In the weeks before she disappeared, she was very frightened. Frightened of what? Morrison asked, making notes. She discovered something about the convent finances. Catherine worked in the administrative office, helping with bookkeeping. What kind of financial irregularities? Money was disappearing. Donations from parishioners, funds from the diocese, even money from the sisters' families. Catherine found discrepancies in the ledgers. Did she report this to Mother Superior Brennan? She tried to. That's when the trouble started. Of trouble? Helen's voice dropped to a whisper. Catherine was confined to her room for 3 days in early March. Mother Superior said she was ill. But I saw her at the window. She looked terrified. Morrison's pen stopped moving. Confined like a prisoner, I don't know. I was afraid to ask. Too many questions. But Catherine slipped me a note during chapel prayers on March 10th. What did the note say? It said, if something happens to me, tell my family I would never leave willingly. The books don't add up. And they know I know. Morrison felt his pulse quicken. Do you still have that note? I kept it for years, but I was so scared. When I transferred to Arizona, I threw it away. I thought if Mother Superior found it. It's Sister. Helen, why didn't you come forward with this information in 1983? You don't understand what it was like. Mother Superior Brennan controlled everything. She decided who could speak to whom could leave the convent, who could receive mail. And Father O'Brien supported her in everything. Morrison made a note about Father O'Brien. Tell me about him. He was the chaplain at St. Mary's. He and Mother Superior were very close to close, some of us thought. What do you mean by that? They had private meetings, long conversations behind closed doors. Father O'Brien had access to the financial Records 2. Morrison flipped to a new page in his notebook. Sister Helen, I need you to think carefully. What happened on March 12, 1983, the last day Catherine was seen? I remember it clearly because it was so unusual. Catherine wasn't at morning prayers, which was strange because she never missed them. When I asked Mother Superior about it, she said Catherine was in spiritual retreat. She was seen at evening prayers. Yes, but she looked different. She kept glancing at the exits during the service. Did you speak to her? I tried to, but Sister Margaret Foster stopped me. She said Catherine was not to be disturbed. Morrison noted the name. Sister Margaret was acting on whose orders? Superiors. Sister Margaret was her closest ally. Sister Helen, this is important. Did you see Catherine leave the chapel after evening prayers? I saw her walking toward the residence hall with Sister Margaret. That was the last time I saw it. Her. Alive? Alive? Morrison's voice sharpened. You believe she's dead? Detective Catherine Walsh would never have left that convent voluntarily. She was more devoted to her vows than any of us. If she's not dead, then someone has kept her imprisoned for 28 years. After ending the call, Morrison immediately contacted Rebecca Walsh. We need to meet. I have new information about your aunt's disappearance. They met at a coffee shop near the police station. Rebecca listened intently as Morrison shared Sister Helen's revelations. Shh. Financial irregularities, Rebecca. Repeated, that explains a lot. What do you mean? My family was always puzzled by Catherine's letters in the months before she disappeared. She kept asking about our grandmother's estate settlement. What about it? Grandma Walsh left a substantial bequest to the convent in Catherine's name, $50,000, which was a fortune in 1983. Morrison made notes. When was this bequest made? January 1983. Catherine's letters suggested she was trying to track what happened to the money. Did she find out? Her last letter to my father was dated March 8, 1983. She wrote, "The money Grandma left for the convent seems to have disappeared. I'm going to get to the bottom of this." Morrison leaned back in his chair. So Catherine discovered financial irregularities, possibly including the theft of her family's donation. She was confined to her room, then disappeared in 28 years. Later, her rosary turns up hidden in another sister's habit, a habit that was given to Sister Dorothy by Mother Superior Brennan. Rebecca's eyes widened. You think Mother Superior kept Catherine's rosary as some kind of trophy or evidence? People who commit crimes often keep souvenirs, even when they know they shouldn't. Detective, what's our next step? I need to examine the convent's financial records from 1983. I also need to interview Father O'Brien. Is he still alive? I'll find out. If he was involved in whatever happened to Catherine, he might be our key to the truth. Morrison spent the afternoon tracking down Father Patrick O'Brien. The diocese office confirmed he was still alive, now serving as pastor of a small parish in rural Pennsylvania. When Morrison called, Father O'Brien's voice was gruff but cautious. Detective, I don't know what I can tell you about something that happened so long ago. You were chaplain at St. Mary's Convent in 1983. You must remember Sister Catherine Walsh. I remember all the sisters. What specifically do you want to know? Did Sister Catherine come to you with concerns about financial irregularities at the convent? The line went quiet for several seconds. I don't recall anything like that, Father. I've spoken with someone who was there. I remember Catherine being confined to her room in early March 1983. Sister Catherine was troubled. She needed time for spiritual reflection, confined against her will. I don't know what you mean by that. Morrison decided to press harder. Father, Sister Catherine's rosary was found hidden in another sister's habit. That rosary disappeared. When she did? How do you explain that? I can't explain it. Perhaps you should speak with Mother Superior Brennan. I have, she claims, not to know how it got there, that I'm afraid I can't help you. Father O'Brien, if you're covering up a crime, you could be charged as an accessory, even after 28 years. Detective, I'm going to end this conversation now. If you want to speak with me further, you'll need to contact the diocese's legal department. The line went dead. Morrison stared at the phone, then dialed Rebecca Walsh. Both Mother Superior Brennan and Father O'Brien are stonewalling, he told. Her, that usually means they're hiding something significant. What can we do? I'm going to get a warrant for the convent's financial records from 1983. If Catherine was killed because she discovered theft, those records should show the evidence. How long will that take? A few days? In the meantime, I want you to gather everything you can about your family's donation to the convent bank records, correspondence, anything that shows the money was actually transferred. I'll contact my father. He handled the estate settlement. Good. And Rebecca, be careful. If we're right about this, we're dealing with people who have already killed once to protect their secrets. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. Really think Catherine was murdered? I think Catherine discovered something that someone was willing to kill to keep secret, and I think that someone is still protecting that secret. After hanging up, Morrison stared at his notes. Financial theft, confinement, disappearance, and now a rosary that had been hidden for nearly 3 decades. The pieces were starting to form a picture, but it was a picture that implicated respected religious figures in murder. He made one more call to the district attorney's office. Jim, this is Detective Morrison. Need to discuss a potential murder case involving a convent. Yes, you heard that right. It's going to get complicated. The district attorney's office smelled of old law books and strong coffee.
Detective.
Morrison sat across from Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen, spreading documents across her desk. Let me understand this correctly, Chen said, adjusting her glasses. Catherine Walsh was murdered in 1983 because she discovered financial theft at St. Mary's Convent? That's correct. I believe multiple people were involved in both the theft and the cover-up. Chen examined the financial records Morrison had obtained through a court order. These ledgers show significant discrepancies. Donations recorded, but not deposited, funds transferred without proper authorization. The Walsh family's $50,000 bequest is listed as received, but there's no record of it ever being deposited into the convent's accounts. Where did the money go? Morrison asked. Morrison pulled out another document. I traced the check. It was deposited into a personal account belonging to Mother Superior Brennan. Chen's eyebrows rose. Personal account? That's embezzlement. Gets worse. I found similar patterns with other large donations. Over a 2-year period, approximately $200,000 was diverted from convent accounts. Who else had access to these accounts? Father O'Brien was a co-signatory on several accounts. He would have had to approve these transactions. Chen leaned back in her chair. So, we have Mother Superior Brennan and Father O'Brien working together to steal from the convent. Sister Catherine Walsh discovered their scheme. What about Sister Margaret Foster? She was mentioned in the original report. Morrison opened another folder. Sister Margaret died in 1995, but I found something interesting in her belongings. The convent donated her personal effects to charity, but they missed something. He produced a small leather journal. This was inside a prayer book. It contains entries from 1983. Chen took the journal, reading aloud. March 8th, 1983. Mother Superior is very angry about Catherine's questions. She says Catherine is being influenced by worldly concerns. March 10th, Catherine has been confined to the infirmary. Mother Superior says she is ill, but she looks healthy to me. Keep reading, Morrison urged. March 12th. I helped prepare Catherine for her journey. Mother Superior says she is being transferred to a convent in California for spiritual healing. Catherine seemed frightened, but she obeyed. Morrison pointed to the entry. That's the last. Day Catherine was seen alive transferred to California, but there's no record of any transfer. I contacted every Catholic facility in California. None of them have any record of Sister Catherine Walsh. Chen continued reading. March 15th. I keep thinking about Catherine's last words to me. She said, "Tell my family I didn't want to leave." But Mother Superior says I must not discuss Catherine's departure with anyone. Sister Margaret was clearly troubled by what happened, Morrison said. There's more, Chen said, flipping pages. March 20th. I overheard Mother Superior and Father O'Brien talking about the problem being solved. They didn't see me listening outside the office door. Morrison leaned forward. What else? April 2nd. Detective Campbell came to ask questions about Catherine. Mother Superior told him exactly what to write in his report. She said the church would handle everything internally. Chen looked up from the journal. They corrupted the original investigation. Officer Campbell was a devout Catholic. He trusted Mother Superior Brennan implicitly. This journal is evidence of conspiracy, Chen said, making notes. Do we have anything else? Morrison produced a bank statement. After Catherine's disappearance, the thefts continued. Over the next 5 years, another $300,000 was stolen. $500,000 total, at least. And that's just what I could trace. Chen stood, pacing around her office. Detective, this is a strong case for financial fraud, but murder is harder to prove. Without a body. I have a theory about that. Morrison pulled out a map of the convent grounds. The convent sits on 40 acres. In 1983, they were doing construction on a new chapel. The foundation was poured in April 1983, just weeks after Catherine disappeared. You think she's buried under the chapel? It would explain why her body was never found. It would also explain why Mother Superior Brennan has been so protective of that building. Chen studied the map. Getting permission to excavate under a chapel would be extremely difficult. It's not impossible, especially with evidence of murder. What about the rosary? How does that fit? Morrison had been thinking about this. I believe Mother Superior Brennan kept it as insurance. If anyone ever questioned Catherine's disappearance, she could produce the rosary as evidence that Catherine had left voluntarily. But why hide it in Sister Dorothy's habit? Because Sister Dorothy was transferred from Philadelphia in 1996. She had no connection to the events of 1983. Mother Superior probably thought the rosary would be safely hidden there. Chen returned to her desk, shuffling through the documents. Detective, I'm convinced we have enough evidence to make arrests on the financial crimes. But murder is still circumstantial. What do you need? A confession or a body or both? Morrison's phone rang. He answered, listening intently before. Hanging up, that was Rebecca Walsh, he told Chen. She's been going through her father's papers. She found something interesting. What? A letter from Sister Catherine, dated March 11th, 1983. She wrote to her father, asking him to contact the FBI if anything happened to her. Chen's expression changed. The FBI? Why? Because stealing from religious institutions is a federal crime. Catherine was going to report the theft to federal authorities. Did her father contact the FBI? No. He received the letter after Catherine was already reported missing. By then, the local police had closed the case. Chen picked up her phone. I'm calling the FBI. Financial crimes involving religious institutions fall under their jurisdiction. And murder, if we can prove it, they'll help us with that too. Morrison left the DAS office with a sense of momentum. The case was becoming clearer, but he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Proving that respected religious figures had committed murder would require more than financial records and circumstantial evidence. He drove to the convent, parking across the street and studying the building. Somewhere in those walls or under those foundations lay the truth about what happened to Catherine Walsh. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca Walsh. My father found more letters from Catherine. She was planning to leave the convent, but not because she wanted to abandon her vows. She was going to report the theft to the authorities and feared for her safety. Morrison texted back, We're getting closer to the truth. Be careful. As he drove away, Morrison noticed a black sedan following him. He made several turns and the sedan stayed with him. Someone was watching the investigation. He called dispatch. I need a patrol unit to check on Rebecca Walsh. Send them to her home address immediately. Problem, detective? Possibly. People we're investigating have kept their secrets for 28 years. They might be willing to kill again to protect them. Rebecca Walsh's hands shook as she read the letter from her Aunt Catherine. Dated March 11th, 1983. The writing was hurried, desperate. Dear Robert, the letter began. I fear I may not have much time left. The situation here has become dangerous. Discovered that Mother Superior Brennan and Father O'Brien have been stealing money from the convent for years. They know I found out, and they're threatening me. Rebecca's father, Robert Walsh, sat beside her in his living room, his face pale. I should have acted on this letter immediately, Dad. You received it after she was already missing. There was nothing you could have done. I could have demanded a real investigation instead of accepting the church's explanation. Rebecca continued reading. They confined me to my room for 3 days, claiming I was ill. Father O'Brien came to see me yesterday, said I had 2 choices: sign a document stating that I was leaving the convent voluntarily or face the consequences of my interference in church matters. What document? Robert asked. I don't know. Keep reading. I refused to sign anything. I told them I was going to report the theft to the FBI. That's when Mother Superior told me I would be transferred to a convent in California. I don't believe there is any transfer. I believe they intend to kill me. Rebecca looked up from the letter. Dad, she knew they were going to kill her. There's more, Robert said, pointing to the letter. If something happens to me, know that I would never abandon my vows voluntarily. The rosary Grandma gave me when I took my first vows is hidden in my room behind the loose board near the window. If they claim I left willingly, find the rosary. If it's not there, you'll know I didn't leave by choice. Rebecca's phone rang. Detective Morrison's voice was urgent. Rebecca, are you at your father's house? Yes. Why? I think you're being watched. A black sedan has been following me since I left the DA's office. Following you? Who would? The same people who killed your aunt. They know we're getting close to the truth. Rebecca looked out the window and saw a dark car parked across the street. There's a car outside Dad's house. Get away from the windows. I'm sending a patrol unit to your location, Detective. We found another letter from Catherine. She knew they were going to kill her. Read it to me.
Rebecca
Read the letter aloud while moving away from the window. When she finished, Morrison was silent for several moments. Rebecca, that letter is evidence of premeditation. If we can prove Catherine was murdered, we can charge them with first-degree murder. What about the rosary she mentioned hiding in her room? We need to search her old room. Do you know if it's still intact? I don't know. The convent might have renovated since 1983. I'm getting a search warrant. In the meantime, stay away from the convent and don't go anywhere alone. After hanging up, Rebecca and her father continued examining the documents. They found bank records showing the $50,000 donation to the convent, along with a receipt signed by Mother Superior Brennan. Look at this, Robert said, holding up a carbon copy of a check. This is the original deposit slip for the donation. Rebecca studied the document. It's made out to St. Mary's Convent Building Fund, but there's something written in the margin. What does it say? Personal account AB. That must be Agatha Brennan. So she was stealing donations right from the beginning. Rebecca's phone rang. Again, this time it was an unknown number. Hello, Miss Walsh. This is Sister Dorothy Mills from St. Mary's Convent. I need to speak with you urgently. Sister Dorothy, are you all right? I'm frightened. After you left yesterday, Mother Superior questioned me extensively about the rosary. She seemed very angry. Where are you now? At the public library in town. I couldn't risk calling. From the convent, Miss Walsh. I think I know what happened to your aunt. Rebecca's pulse quickened. What do you know? I've been thinking about the rosary, about how it ended up in my habit. I remembered something from when I first arrived at St. Mary's in 1996. What? Mother Superior gave me a box of habits that had belonged to a sister who had transferred to another convent. She said I should take what I needed. You think those habits belonged to Catherine? I think so. And Miss Walsh, there's something else. I've been having trouble sleeping since we found the rosary, so I went to the chapel last night to pray. What did you see? Saw Mother Superior and Father O'Brien in the chapel at 2 o'clock in the morning? They were arguing about something? I heard Father O'Brien say, we should have gotten rid of everything years ago. Rebecca felt a chill. Sister Dorothy, you need to get somewhere safe. I'm scared to go back to the convent. What if they know I overheard them? Come to my father's. House Detective Morrison is already sending police protection. Are you sure it's safe? Safer than the convent? Sister Dorothy, did you hear anything else? Mother Superior said something about loose ends and too many questions. She mentioned your name. Rebecca's blood ran cold. My name? She said you were causing problems, just like your aunt did. Father O'Brien told her to handle it like before. Sister Dorothy, come to my father's house immediately. Don't go back to the convent. After hanging up, Rebecca called Detective Morrison. Sister Dorothy overheard Mother Superior and Father O'Brien talking about handling me like they handled my aunt. They're getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes or they kill people. Rebecca, I want you and your father to pack some clothes. I'm moving you to a safe house until we can make arrests. When will that be? Soon. The FBI is reviewing the financial evidence. If they agree to take the case, we can move quickly. About excavating under the chapel, I'm working on it. But first, we need to keep you safe. An hour later, Detective Morrison arrived at the Walsh house with 2 FBI agents. Agent Sarah Martinez introduced herself and her partner, Agent David. Kim, Miss Walsh, we've reviewed the financial evidence Detective Morrison provided. We're prepared to make arrests on federal charges of mail fraud and theft from a religious institution. What about murder? Rebecca asked. That's harder to prove without a body, but if we can get confessions on the financial crimes, they might lead to admissions about your aunt's death. Sister Dorothy arrived shortly after, looking frightened but determined. I brought something, she said, pulling a small item from her purse. It was a key. Oh, this was in the pocket of one of the habits Mother Superior gave me. Never knew what. It opened until last night. What does it open? Agent Martinez asked. The storage room in the convent basement. I saw Mother Superior go there after her argument with Father O'Brien. Agent Kim leaned forward. What's in the storage room? I don't know, but Mother Superior was very agitated when she came back upstairs. She had dirt under her fingernails. Detective Morrison looked at the FBI agents. We need to search that storage room. We'll include it in the search warrant, Agent Martinez replied. But first, we arrest the suspects. Rebecca felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. After 28 years, the truth about her aunt's disappearance was finally within reach. Agent Martinez, she said, what happens if they confess to murdering Catherine? Then we charge them with murder, and we find out where they buried her body. And if they don't confess, then we keep digging until we find the truth. The FBI search. Warrant was executed at dawn. Agent Martinez led the team into St. Mary's Convent while Agent Kim coordinated the arrests of Mother Superior Brennan and Father O'Brien. Detective Morrison accompanied Rebecca Walsh as they descended into the convent basement. The storage room was located behind the furnace, accessible only through a narrow corridor. This key better work, Morrison muttered, inserting the key Sister Dorothy had provided. The lock clicked open. Morrison pushed the door, and it swung inward with a creak that echoed in the basement. The room was small, perhaps 8 feet by 10 feet, with stone walls and a concrete floor. Shelves lined the walls, containing boxes of old religious artifacts and documents. Detective, look at this, Rebecca said, pointing to a corner of the room. The concrete floor showed clear signs of having been disturbed. A rectangular section, approximately 6 feet by 3 feet, had been patched with newer concrete. Agent Martinez Morrison called into his radio, "We need the excavation team down here immediately." Within an hour, the basement was filled with FBI technicians and forensic specialists. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed what Morrison suspected. There was a void beneath the patched concrete. The readings suggest human remains, the lead technician reported. We'll need to excavate carefully to preserve evidence. Rebecca stood in the hallway watching the technicians work. After 28 years of wondering, she was finally going to learn the truth about her aunt's fate. Agent Martinez approached her. Miss Walsh, we've arrested Mother Superior Brennan and Father O'Brien. They're being held separately for questioning. Have they said anything? Father O'Brien is asking for a lawyer. Mother Superior Brennan is claiming she has no knowledge of any crimes, even with the financial evidence. She's denying everything, but people often change their story when confronted with physical evidence. The excavation took 3 hours. When the technicians finally broke through the concrete, they found a wooden box, approximately the size of a coffin. We have remains, the forensic specialist announced. Female, based on the pelvis structure. The body appears to have been wrapped in fabric. Rebecca felt her knees weaken. Morrison steadied her with a hand on her shoulder. It will need DNA analysis for positive identification, the specialist continued. But based on the approximate age and the circumstances, this is likely. Your aunt. How did she die? Rebecca asked, her voice barely audible. preliminary examination suggests blunt force trauma to the skull. We'll know more after the autopsy. Agent Martinez's radio crackled. Agent Martinez, this is Agent Kim, Mother Superior. Brennan is asking to speak with you. She says she's ready to make a statement. I'll be right there. Morrison looked at Rebecca. Do you want to hear what she has to say? Yes. I need to know everything. They drove to the FBI field office, where Mother Superior Brennan sat in an interrogation room. She looked smaller than Rebecca remembered, her severe demeanor replaced by something approaching fear. Agent Martinez began the recording. This is Agent Martinez, FBI present. Our Mother Superior, Agatha Brennan, her attorney William Foster, Detective Morrison, and Rebecca Walsh. I object to Miss Walsh being present, the attorney said. Miss Walsh is the victim's next of kin. She has a right to hear this. Mother Superior Brennan looked directly at Rebecca. I want you to know that I never intended for Catherine to die. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. But you killed her. It was an accident. Catherine was going to destroy everything we had built. She was going to report us to the FBI, ruin the convent, destroy Father O'Brien's career. So you murdered her to protect. Your theft? We were using the money for good purposes? The convent needed renovations. The sisters needed better care. The church bureaucracy would have wasted the donations on administrative costs. Agent Martinez leaned forward. Tell us exactly what happened. On March 12, 1983, Mother Superior Brennan began, her lawyer whispering something to her, but she shook her head. I've lived with this guilt for 28 years. I need to tell the truth. She looked down at her hands. Catherine came to my office that evening after prayers. She said she had copied all the financial records and was going to mail them to the FBI the next morning. What did you do? I tried to reason with her. Explained that the money was being used for the convent's benefit, not for personal gain. But she wouldn't listen. Then what happened? She said she was going to pack her things and leave the convent. She said she would report the theft whether she stayed or left. Rebecca leaned forward. So you killed her. She turned to leave, and I grabbed her arm. She pulled away and fell, hitting her head on the corner of my desk. Agent Martinez made notes. She was unconscious. She was bleeding. I checked for a pulse, but there wasn't one. I panicked. What did you do with her body? I called Father O'Brien. Came immediately. We wrapped her in a blanket and carried her to the basement. You buried her in the storage room, Father. O'Brien said we had to protect the convent. He said if Catherine's death became known, it would destroy the faith of all the sisters. Detective Morrison spoke for the first time. You buried her, then reported her missing 3 days later. We needed time to create the story about her leaving voluntarily. We removed all her belongings from her room, scattered them in different locations. What about her rosary, Mother Superior? Brennan's voice became quieter. I kept it. I don't know why. Perhaps as a reminder of what we had done. Why did you hide it in Sister Dorothy's habit? When Sister Dorothy transferred from Philadelphia, I gave her Catherine's old habits. Thought they would be safely hidden there. Rebecca stood up, her voice shaking with anger. You killed my aunt over money. You stole from the church. You murdered an innocent woman, and you covered it up for 28 years? I've regretted it every day since it happened. Regret doesn't bring Catherine back. Agent Martinez concluded the interview. Mother Superior Brennan, you're being charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, mail fraud, and theft from a religious institution. What about Father O'Brien? He'll be charged as an accessory to murder and conspiracy. As they left the FBI office, Rebecca felt a complex mixture of emotions. She finally had the truth about her aunt's death, but the truth was more horrible than she had imagined. Detective Morrison, she said, what happens now? Now we prepare for trial. Mother Superior Brennan's confession and the physical evidence, we have a strong case. Will she get the death penalty? It's up to the prosecutor, but she spend the rest of her life in prison. Rebecca looked back at the FBI building. I need to call my father. He's waited 28 years for this moment. Rebecca, I want you to know that your aunt would be proud of you. You never gave up looking for the truth. I just wish I could have found it sooner. Sometimes the truth takes time to surface, but it always does eventually. Rebecca thought about Catherine Walsh, the young nun who had died because she tried to do the right thing. Justice had finally come, but it had taken far too long. Agent Kim's voice crackled through the radio as Detective Morrison drove Rebecca Walsh home from the FBI office. "Detective, we have a problem. Father O'Brien has escaped from custody." Morrison pulled over immediately. "How is that possible?" He complained of chest pains during questioning. "When the paramedics were examining him, he overpowered an officer and fled. Where's the manhunt? We have units covering the airports, train stations, and bus terminals. But he had a 3-hour head start." Rebecca felt her stomach drop. "He's coming after me, isn't he?" "We don't know," Morrison replied, but his expression suggested otherwise. Agent Kim continued over the radio. "Detective, we found something in Father O'Brien's car. A handwritten list with names and addresses." "Whose names?" "Rebecca Walsh, Sister Dorothy Mills, and Sister Helen Murphy in Arizona." Morrison made a U-turn, heading back toward the FBI office. "Agent Kim, I'm bringing Miss Walsh to a secure location." "No." "Has anyone contacted Sister Helen?" "Arizona Phoenix FBI is handling that, but Detective, there's something else. Father O'Brien withdrew $20,000 from a bank account this morning before we arrested him. He was planning to run. It looks that way, and he's had access to false identification documents through the diocese." Rebecca gripped the door handle as Morrison accelerated. "Why would he come after us now?" Mother Superior Brennan already confessed. "Because you can testify about the financial records, and Sister Dorothy can testify about the rosary. Without witnesses, the case against him becomes much weaker." Morrison's radio crackled again. "All units, be advised. Subject Patrick O'Brien, age 72, white male, may be armed and dangerous. He's wanted for murder, conspiracy, and escape from federal custody." "Detective," Rebecca said, "I need to warn Sister Dorothy. The FBI's already moving her to a safe house. What about my father? He's under police protection at his home." Morrison pulled into the FBI parking garage. "We're going to keep you here until O'Brien is captured." As they entered the building, Agent Martinez met them at the elevator. "We've traced Father O'Brien's movements. He stole a car from the hospital parking lot and drove north. North toward—" "What?" "Toward the Canadian border. He's trying to flee the country." "Can he make it?" "Not if we catch him first, but he knows the area well. He served parishes throughout upstate New York for decades." In the FBI conference room, Rebecca watched multiple screens showing the manhunt. Helicopters circled overhead, roadblocks were established at key intersections, and dozens of law enforcement vehicles were involved in the search. "Agent Martinez," she said, "what happens if he gets away?" "He won't get away. We have too many resources deployed. But if he does, then we'll track him down wherever he goes. This is a federal case now. We have jurisdiction anywhere in the world." Morrison studied the tactical map. "Agent Martinez, O'Brien knows we found the body. He knows Mother Superior Brennan confessed. Why is he running instead of negotiating a plea deal? Because he's facing life in prison without parole. At his age, running is his only option. Or eliminating witnesses," Rebecca added grimly. Agent Martinez received a call on her secure phone. After a brief conversation, she turned to Morrison. "State police found the stolen car abandoned near the Canadian border, but there's no sign of O'Brien. Did he cross the border?" "Border Patrol has no record of him. He may have gone into the woods." Morrison frowned. "In October, he won't survive long in the wilderness, unless he has help. We're checking all the parishes in the area. Some priest might help him without knowing he's a fugitive." Rebecca's phone rang. The number was blocked. She looked at Agent Martinez, who nodded, and began recording the call. "Hello, Miss Walsh. This is Father O'Brien." Rebecca's blood ran cold. "Where are you?" "It's not important. What's important is that you understand the consequences of your actions. My actions. You murdered my aunt. Your aunt was going to destroy everything. The convent, the church, the faith of innocent people. She was selfish and destructive. She was trying to stop you from stealing. We were using those funds for God's work. The church bureaucracy would have wasted them on administrative costs." Agent Martinez was frantically signaling to technicians trying to trace the call. "Father O'Brien, you need to surrender. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. You and Sister Dorothy have caused irreparable harm. Where is Sister Dorothy?
Eve?
For now, Rebecca felt panic rising. What do you mean? I mean that sometimes sacrifices must be made to protect the greater good. You can't hurt innocent people. I've already hurt innocent people. Your aunt was innocent, but she left me no choice. Agent Martinez slid a note to Rebecca. Keep him talking. Father O'Brien, you said it was an accident that Catherine fell and hit her head. That's what Agatha told you, but it wasn't an accident. Rebecca's hands began shaking. What do you mean? Your aunt was going to destroy everything we had built. I couldn't let that happen. So, you killed her deliberately. I struck her with a candlestick from the chapel. She died instantly. Agent Martinez was making urgent gestures to her team. They had traced the call to a cell tower near the Canadian border. Why are you telling me this? Rebecca asked.
Because
You're going to join your aunt very soon, and I want you to understand why. The line went dead. Rebecca stared at the phone, her face pale. He's going to kill me, she whispered. No, he's not. Agent Martinez replied firmly. We have his location. Tactical teams are moving in now. What about Sister Dorothy? We're checking on her location now. Morrison received a call on his phone. His expression grew grim as he listened. What is it? Rebecca asked. Sister Dorothy never made it to the safe house. Her escort was found unconscious in their car. He has her. It looks that way. Agent Martinez coordinated with the tactical teams. We have Father O'Brien's location. He's in a cabin about 10 miles from the border. Infrared shows 2 people inside. Sister Dorothy, presumably. We're moving to surround the cabin. Rebecca stood up. I want to go with you. Absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe. He's holding Sister Dorothy because of me. I need to help her. The best way to help her is to let the professionals handle this. Morrison's radio crackled with updates from the tactical team. We have the cabin surrounded. Suspect is holding a hostage. Requesting negotiator. Agent Martinez looked at Rebecca. Miss Walsh, would you be willing to speak with Father O'Brien again? Sometimes hostage takers respond to someone they know. What do you want me to say? Try to keep him calm. Try to get him to release Sister Dorothy. And if he won't, then we'll have to use other methods. Rebecca accepted the phone as Agent Martinez prepared to connect her to Father O'Brien. After 28 years of seeking justice for her aunt, she was about to confront her killer directly. Father O'Brien, she said when the connection was made. Let Sister Dorothy go. She's an innocent woman. So was your aunt. But innocence doesn't protect people from the consequences of their actions. What do you want? I want you to come to the cabin alone. It's not going to happen. Then Sister Dorothy will suffer the same fate as your aunt. Rebecca looked at Agent Martinez, who was shaking her head firmly. Father O'Brien, you're surrounded. There's no escape. The best thing you can do is surrender peacefully. I'm not surrendering. I'm finishing what I started 28 years ago. The phone. Rebecca could hear Sister Dorothy's voice in the background, pleading for help. Let her go, Rebecca said. Take me instead. Miss Walsh, you're in no position to negotiate. I'm in every position to negotiate, the one you really want. Agent Martinez was making frantic no gestures, but Rebecca continued. If you let Sister Dorothy go, I'll come to the cabin, just you and me. Rebecca, don't do this, Morrison whispered. Father O'Brien, do we have a deal? The line was quiet for several seconds. Then O'Brien's voice returned. You have 1 hour to get here. Come alone, or Sister Dorothy dies. The call ended. Rebecca looked at Agent Martinez. I'm going to that cabin. No, you're not. We don't negotiate with terrorists. He's not a terrorist. He's a desperate man who's killed once and is willing to kill again. Morrison stepped forward. Rebecca, there has to be another way. There is no other way. Sister Dorothy is going to die because of me. I won't let that happen. Agent Martinez was already coordinating with the tactical team. We're not sending you into that cabin. We'll find another solution. What solution? He's holding a hostage and threatening to kill her. We have sharpshooters in position. If we can get a clear shot, and if you miss, or if he kills Sister Dorothy before you can fire? Rebecca stood up, her decision made. I'm going to that cabin, with or without your help. Miss Walsh, I can't allow that. You can't stop me. I'm not under arrest. Morrison looked at Agent Martinez. What if we wire her with a transmitter? Keep her in constant contact. It's too dangerous. Sister Dorothy's life is in danger, right? Now, Rebecca's plan might be our best option. Agent Martinez considered for a moment. If we do this, you follow our instructions exactly. You wear a wire, you keep the communication open, and you don't take any unnecessary risks. Agreed. You understand that there's a good chance you won't come out of that cabin alive. Rebecca thought about her Aunt Catherine, who had died trying to do the right thing. Sometimes you have to take risks to protect innocent people. Right. Let's get you prepared. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by dense woods, its windows glowing yellow in the late afternoon light. Rebecca Walsh approached on foot, her heart pounding as she followed the dirt path Agent Martinez had shown her on the tactical map. The wire taped to her chest transmitted every sound back to the FBI command post. Agent Martinez's voice whispered through the nearly invisible earpiece. Rebecca, you're doing great. Just keep walking toward the front door. Rebecca could see the shadowy figures of tactical team members positioned in the trees around the cabin. Their presence was somewhat comforting, but she knew that if Father O'Brien decided to kill her, they might not be able to stop him in time. She reached the front door and knocked twice. Come in, Father O'Brien's voice called from inside. Rebecca pushed the door open and stepped into the cabin. The interior was sparsely furnished with a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a small bed. Father O'Brien sat in one of the chairs, a hunting rifle across his lap. Sister Dorothy was tied to the other chair, her eyes wide with fear. Sister Dorothy, are you all right? Rebecca asked. I'm unharmed, Sister Dorothy replied, though her voice shook. Father O'Brien studied Rebecca with cold eyes. You came alone. I'm surprised. I keep my word. Unlike some people, I've kept my word for 28 years. I protected the secret of what happened to your aunt. You mean you covered up your murder? Protected the church from scandal? Your aunt's death would have destroyed the faith of countless people. Rebecca stepped further into the cabin, noting the layout and the positions of the windows. Through her earpiece, she heard Agent Martinez whisper, Keep him talking. We're moving into position. Father O'Brien, why did you really kill my aunt? Because she was going to destroy everything. The convent, the church, the lives of innocent sisters who depended on us. She was trying to stop you from stealing. We weren't stealing.
Oh.
We were redirecting funds to where they were needed most. To your personal accounts? Father O'Brien's expression hardened. Some of the money was used for personal expenses. The church doesn't pay its servants adequately. So you killed Catherine to protect your theft? I killed Catherine to protect? The greater good, Sister Dorothy spoke, for the first time since Rebecca had entered. Father O'Brien, you can't justify murder by claiming it serves God. I can justify anything that protects the church, he replied coldly. Through her earpiece, Rebecca heard Agent Martinez. You have sharpshooters in position. Keep them focused on you. Father O'Brien, Rebecca said, what's your plan here? Can't escape. You're surrounded. My plan is to finish what I started. You and Sister Dorothy are the only witnesses left who can testify about the financial irregularities. Mother Superior Brennan already confessed to everything. Agatha's a weak woman. She always was. But without corroborating witnesses, her confession might not hold up in court. You're willing to kill 2 innocent people to avoid prison. I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to protect the church. Rebecca took another step forward. The church doesn't need protection from the truth. The church needs protection from scandal. Your aunt didn't understand that. My aunt understood right from wrong, something you apparently never learned. Father O'Brien raised the rifle, pointing it at Rebecca. But your aunt was naive. I thought she could expose our financial arrangements without consequences. What consequences you mean besides murder? I mean the destruction of faith. Learn that their religious leaders are imperfect. They lose faith in God. People lose faith when they learn that their religious leaders are murderers. Through her earpiece, Rebecca heard urgent whispers from the tactical team. Agent Martinez's voice was barely audible. Rebecca, get him to move away from Sister Dorothy. Rebecca understood. Sharpshooters needed a clear shot that wouldn't endanger Sister Dorothy. Father O'Brien, if you're going to kill me, at least have the courage to do it face to face. I'm not a coward, Miss Walsh. Then stand up. What? Look me in the eye when you pull that trigger. Father O'Brien hesitated, then slowly stood up. The rifle remained pointed at Rebecca, but he had moved several feet away from Sister Dorothy. You want to know exactly what happened to your aunt? He asked. Yes. She came to my office the night she died. She had copies of all the financial records, and she was planning to mail them to the FBI the next morning. "So you killed her." I tried to reason with her first. I explained that the money was being used for the benefit of the convent and the church, but she wouldn't listen. Then what happened? She said she was going to pack her things and leave the convent. She said she would report the theft whether she stayed or left. That's when you hit her with the candlestick. Father O'Brien's eyes narrowed. "You know about the candlestick? You told me on the phone. You said it wasn't an accident." "It wasn't an accident. I struck her deliberately. She fell immediately." "Was she dead?" "Not immediately. She was unconscious and bleeding. I checked for a pulse, but it was very weak. Rebecca felt sick." "So you finished the job?" "I struck her again. I couldn't risk her surviving and reporting what she had discovered." Through her earpiece, Rebecca heard Agent Martinez whisper, "We have everything we need. Move away from him." But Rebecca couldn't move. She was frozen by the horror of what she was hearing. "Father O'Brien, how could you live with yourself for 28 years? Lived with the knowledge that I had protected something greater than myself. You lived with the knowledge that you were a murderer. I lived with the knowledge that I had made a necessary sacrifice." Sister Dorothy spoke from her chair. "Father O'Brien, murder is never necessary. It's always evil. You're naive, just like Catherine was. I'm not naive. I'm faithful, and faith doesn't require covering up crimes." Father O'Brien turned the rifle toward Sister Dorothy. "Faith requires protecting the church from scandal." "No," Rebecca shouted, lunging forward. The rifle discharged, the sound deafening in the small cabin. Rebecca hit Father O'Brien in the chest, and they both fell to the floor. Through the cabin windows, Rebecca could see tactical team members rushing toward the building. Agent Martinez's voice was shouting through her earpiece, but she couldn't understand the words over the ringing in her ears. Father O'Brien was struggling beneath her, trying to reach the rifle that had fallen several feet away. Rebecca grabbed his wrists, holding him down with all her strength. "Sister Dorothy," she called out. "I'm all right," Sister Dorothy replied. The bullet went into the wall. The cabin door burst open, and tactical team members flooded in. Within seconds, Father O'Brien was handcuffed. Rebecca was being helped to her feet. Agent Martinez rushed to Rebecca's side. "Are you injured?" "I don't think so," Rebecca replied, her voice shaking. "Sister Dorothy, I'm fine, just frightened." Agent Martinez looked at Father O'Brien, who was being read his rights by one of the tactical officers. "Patrick O'Brien, you're under arrest for the murder of Catherine Walsh, the kidnapping of Dorothy Mills, and escape from federal custody." Father O'Brien looked directly at Rebecca. "You have no idea what you've done. A scandal from this will destroy people's faith." "The only thing that destroys faith is the actions of people like you," Rebecca replied. As Father O'Brien was led away in handcuffs, Agent Martinez turned to Rebecca. "You realize you just got a complete confession to murder?" "I realize I just helped Sister Dorothy survive. You also risked your own life unnecessarily. Some risks are worth taking." Agent Martinez smiled. "Your aunt would have been proud of you." Rebecca looked out the cabin window at the forest where tactical team members were securing the scene. After 28 years, she finally had justice for her Aunt Catherine. But the cost had been higher than she had ever imagined. "Agent Martinez," she said, "what happens now? Now we prepare for trial. And now you can finally put this behind you." "I don't think I'll ever be able to put this completely behind me. The pain will fade, but the justice will remain. Your aunt's death finally has meaning." Rebecca nodded, thinking about the young nun who had died trying to do the right thing. Catherine Walsh had been murdered for telling the truth, but the truth had finally prevailed. "Let's go home," she said. The FBI interrogation room was stark and cold, but the revelations that emerged over the following days were more chilling than the atmosphere. Father Patrick O'Brien, facing multiple murder charges and life in prison, had decided to cooperate fully with federal investigators. Detective Morrison sat across from Agent Martinez as they reviewed the expanded case file. "How many victims are we talking about?" he asked. "At least 3 confirmed murders, possibly more," Agent Martinez replied. "O'Brien has been confessing to crimes going back 30 years. Rebecca Walsh sat in the observation room, watching through one-way glass as Father O'Brien provided details about a pattern of violence that had shocked even experienced federal agents. "Tell us about Sister Mary Catherine," Agent Martinez said to O'Brien during the recorded interview. "She was at the convent in Philadelphia before I transferred to St. Mary's in 1981, O'Brien replied, his voice monotone. "She discovered irregularities in the school's financial records." "What kind of irregularities?" "I was taking money from the school's lunch program, federal funds meant for poor children." "How much money?" "Over 2 years, approximately $75,000. "What happened to Sister Mary Catherine?" "She confronted me in my office. She said she was going to report the theft to the archdiocese." "You killed her?" "I struck her with a paperweight. She fell and hit her head on the desk." "Was that in 1980? "November 1980. I made it look like an accident." "She was found at the bottom of the convent stairs the next morning." Agent Martinez made notes. "And the third victim, Sister Anne Marie, at the Detroit convent in 1978. She was the treasurer and noticed money missing from the building fund. The same pattern." "Yes, I was young and needed money. The church doesn't pay well." Rebecca felt sick listening to the casual way O'Brien described multiple murders. She had discovered that her aunt's death was part of a decades-long pattern of violence and theft. Detective Morrison entered the observation room. "Rebecca, no. This is difficult to hear. 3 women. He murdered 3 nuns to cover up his stealing and possibly more. The FBI is investigating suspicious deaths at convents where O'Brien served throughout his career. How did he get away with it for so long? The church protected him. They transferred him to different locations whenever problems arose, and they handled everything internally." Agent Martinez emerged from the interrogation room. "We're expanding the investigation to include church officials who may have covered up these crimes." "What about Mother Superior Brennan? She's cooperating fully?" "It appears she was genuinely unaware of the other murders, but she helped cover up Catherine's death." "Yes, and she'll be prosecuted for that." But O'Brien was the mastermind behind the entire operation. Rebecca studied the case files spread across the table. Financial records, death certificates, and transfer documents painted a picture of systematic corruption within the church hierarchy. "Agent Martinez, how many church officials knew about this?" "That's what we're trying to determine. The pattern suggests that someone at the diocesan level was helping O'Brien avoid scrutiny." "Are you investigating the diocese?" "We're investigating everyone who had knowledge of O'Brien's activities and failed to report them." The next day, Rebecca attended a press conference where the FBI announced the charges against Father O'Brien and the expansion of their investigation. The case had grown from a single missing person to a federal investigation of corruption and murder within the Catholic Church. The investigation has revealed a pattern of financial crimes and violence spanning multiple decades. Agent Martinez told the assembled reporters, "We believe Father Patrick O'Brien murdered at least 3 nuns to cover up his theft of church funds." "How much money was stolen?" the reporter asked. "Preliminary estimates suggest over $1 million was taken from various church accounts over a 30-year period." "What about church officials who may have covered up these crimes?" "We're investigating all individuals who had knowledge of suspicious activities and failed to report them to civil authorities." After the press conference, Rebecca met with representatives from the other victims' families. The sister of Mary Catherine Murphy had traveled from Philadelphia, and the nephew of Anne Marie Fontaine had come from Detroit. "I always suspected something was wrong about Catherine's death," said Margaret Murphy, Mary Catherine's sister. "She was young and healthy. A fall down the stairs seemed impossible." "My aunt was the most careful person I ever knew," added David Fontaine, Anne Marie's nephew. "Would never have had a fatal accident." Rebecca looked at these family members who had lived with the same questions she had carried for 28 years. "We all deserve the truth about what happened to our loved ones. The truth is that they were murdered by someone they trusted," Margaret Murphy replied. "Someone who used their faith against them." Agent Martinez joined the group. "I want all of you to know that we're committed to getting justice for your family members. Father O'Brien will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." "The church officials who covered this up?" David Fontaine asked. "Anyone who participated in obstruction of justice will be charged accordingly." "Are you investigating the cardinal?" We are investigating everyone who had knowledge of these crimes. Over the following weeks, the investigation expanded to include Cardinal Thomas Walsh, no relation to Rebecca, who had served as Archbishop during some of O'Brien's tenure. Documents showed that the cardinal had been informed of financial irregularities at multiple convents, but had chosen to handle the matters internally rather than involving civil authorities. Rebecca found herself at the center of a national scandal that reached the highest levels of the Catholic Church. The revelation that a priest had murdered 3 nuns to cover up theft challenged the Church's moral authority and led to calls for sweeping reforms. Miss Walsh, Agent Martinez said during one of their regular meetings, "I want you to know that your persistence in seeking the truth about your aunt's death has exposed a much larger pattern of corruption. I never intended to bring down the Church. You haven't brought down the Church. You've helped expose criminals who are hiding within the Church. What's the difference? The difference is that true faith can withstand the revelation of truth. Only false faith requires covering up crimes." Rebecca nodded, thinking about her Aunt Catherine, who had died because she refused to cover up financial theft. Catherine would have wanted the truth to come out, regardless of the consequences. Your aunt was a woman of integrity. She died defending that integrity, and now justice is finally being served. Justice is being served. But more importantly, other potential victims are being protected. Rebecca looked at the case files, now numbering in the hundreds of pages. "Agent Martinez, do you think there are other victims we haven't discovered yet? I think Father O'Brien's crimes may have been even more extensive than we initially believed, but we're going to find out. We're going to investigate every suspicious death at every institution where he served. How long will that take? Years, possibly. But we are committed to getting answers for every family that has questions." Rebecca thought about the long journey that had brought her to this point. Finding her aunt's rosary and Sister Dorothy's habit had seemed like a small discovery, but it had led to the exposure of decades of corruption and violence. "Agent Martinez, I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I'm also exhausted. I understand. It's been incredibly difficult for you. I keep thinking about all the people who knew something was wrong but didn't speak up. Fear is a powerful force. The Church had tremendous influence over people's lives, but some things are more important than fear. Yes, truth and justice are more important than fear." Rebecca stood to leave. "I need to visit Catherine's grave. She's finally been laid to rest properly. She's been buried with the honor she deserved, and she's been vindicated. The truth about her death has finally been revealed." As Rebecca left the FBI office, she reflected on the price of seeking justice. Her Aunt Catherine had died trying to expose corruption, and Rebecca had risked her own life to find the truth. But sometimes the pursuit of justice required such sacrifices. The investigation would continue. More charges would be filed, and more victims would be identified. But for Rebecca Walsh, the most important goal had been achieved. Her aunt's murder had been solved. Her killer would spend the rest of his life in prison. 6 months after Father Patrick O'Brien's arrest, Rebecca Walsh stood in the packed federal courthouse as Judge Patricia Henley prepared to sentence the man who had murdered her aunt. The courtroom was filled with family members of O'Brien's victims, church officials, and reporters covering what had become known as the convent murders case. O'Brien sat at the defendant's table, his attorney beside him. He had pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, multiple counts of theft, and conspiracy charges. The plea agreement had spared him the death penalty, but ensured he would spend the rest of his life in prison. "Patrick O'Brien," Judge Henley began, "you have been found guilty of the most heinous crimes imaginable. You murdered 3 innocent women, all of whom had dedicated their lives to serving God in their communities." O'Brien stared straight ahead, showing no emotion. "The evidence presented in this case shows a pattern of violence and theft spanning 3 decades. You used your position as a priest to gain the trust of your victims, then murdered them when they threatened to expose your crimes." Rebecca watched from the gallery, flanked by Margaret Murphy and David Fontaine. Detective Morrison and Agent Martinez sat in the row behind them. "Sister Catherine Walsh was 24 years old when you murdered her," Judge Henley continued. "She had devoted her life to her faith and was trying to protect her convent from financial fraud. For this, you struck her twice with a candlestick and buried her body in a basement storage room. Rebecca felt tears beginning to form. After 28 years, Catherine's story was finally being told in full. Sister Mary Catherine Murphy was 26 years old when you murdered her in Philadelphia. She was trying to protect federal funds meant to feed poor children. You killed her and made it look like an accident. Margaret Murphy sobbed quietly beside Rebecca. Sister Anne Marie Fontaine was 28 years old when you murdered her in Detroit. She was trying to protect building funds meant for her convent. You killed her and covered up your crime for over 30 years. David Fontaine clenched his fists, his face red with anger. A court finds that your crimes were particularly heinous because you violated the trust placed in you as a priest. You use your religious authority to commit crimes and cover them up. Judge Henley looked directly at O'Brien. Do you have anything to say before I impose sentence? O'Brien's attorney whispered something to him, but he shook his head and stood up. Your Honor, I want the families of my victims to know that I have regretted my actions for many years. You regret getting caught? Margaret Murphy called out. From the gallery, order in the court, Judge Henley said firmly. O'Brien continued. I want them to know that their daughters and sisters were good women who died trying to do the right thing. Then why did you kill them? David Fontaine shouted. Order, Judge Henley repeated. O'Brien sat down without saying anything else. Judge. Henley shuffled through her papers. Patrick O'Brien, the court sentences you to life in prison without possibility of parole on each count of murder. These sentences will run consecutively, ensuring that you will never be released from prison. Additionally, you are sentenced to 20 years on each count of theft and conspiracy. These sentences will also run consecutively. Court recommends that you be held in solitary confinement for your own protection, given the nature of your crimes. Gavel came down with finality. Patrick O'Brien was led away in handcuffs, his head down. Rebecca felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring back the 3 women who had died. Outside the courthouse, Agent Martinez addressed the assembled media. This case demonstrates the importance of holding religious institutions accountable to the same legal standards as any other organization. No one is above the law, regardless of their position or authority. What about the church officials who covered up these crimes? The reporter asked. 3 diocesan officials have been charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy. Their trials will begin next month. What reforms is the church implementing? That's a question for church officials. Our role is to enforce the law. Rebecca was approached by several reporters, but she declined to give interviews. She had said everything she needed to say during the trial. Detective Morrison joined her as she walked away from the courthouse. How do you feel? Relieved? Sad? Angry? Grateful? That's a lot of emotions. It's been a long journey.
At.
Your aunt would be proud. Of you? I hope so.